Welcome to the Gravity Well podcast with me, Jenny Yeremy. I host the Gravity Well to celebrate and share the stories of people looking to empower others with the knowledge and skills required to reestablish stability in our communities. My mission is to work through heavy issues in conversation and process in order to lighten the load. I acknowledge that I live on the traditional territories of Treaty 7 and Métis Districts 5 and 6. The treaties and self-governance agreements established by Indigenous peoples were created to honor the laws of the land, maintain balance with nature, and give back to uphold reciprocal relationships. This knowledge and intention are what guide the Gravity Well conversations. I ask for genuine dialogue, real hearts, and openness to different perspectives. This is your invitation to find common ground with me. Positions taken by participants, either individually or collectively, do not necessarily represent those of the Gravity Well. This podcast is dedicated to the natural world, our children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and all future generations. The Gravity Well is on YouTube and streaming wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you see and hear, remember to like and subscribe. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super thrilled to have Mikayla Resist in the studio again today. Last we spoke, Mikayla, was February. Let's back up and start with a reintroduction of you. So you are an education support worker, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, yes. You grew up. Did you grow up in Alberta too? I don't know if I asked you that.
I actually grew up in Vancouver Island, and I've been in Alberta since 2012.
Amazing.
So it's where I've been raising my son.
Nice. Yeah. And oh, amazing. How old is your son, if you don't mind me asking?
He's 16 now, so he's in high school.
Amazing. Yeah, I have two boys who are 17 and 19. So yeah, we're in very similar places and,
yes.
and with very similar motives, I would say, is to make sure that our kids are being set up for success. So thank you. I want to back up. Let's tell people what you've been up to since February. So last we spoke, we were talking about your efforts with the Alberta Civic Integrity Project, where you were out on the front lines. It started when you were you were on the front lines for your work back when education workers were on strike, and that's really what motivated you and saw the issues. And then you've been following the separatist movement really closely. You've been keeping eyes on it. You've been following their events, their locations, etc. So what else just as a way of background, can you add to that what I missed, please, Mikayla?
Well, we met on the journey of recalls. So we were utilizing our democratic tool, and that's how we connected. And it was a very powerful experience. And then as recalls ended, we all collectively decided to continue to move forward. Each group has been up to something different, and those groups are still just as strong and mighty as they were before. So that's amazing as well.
Stronger even.
Yeah, and I was able to connect with multiple groups in Edmonton since February. So I work with another group called WHERE, which is Empowerment for Women. They're a great group. And then there's just like multiple groups that have just connected together in Edmonton just because of the UCP essentially and this separatist movement. So it's been a very interesting experience.
Yeah, interesting. And I want to say, because I don't want to forget to, thank you for your courage, Mikayla, because the work you do is not easy. It is, I know it. I do it, some of it myself, and it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of knowing that, this is for the right reasons, and being patient with things, and knowing that there's times where we're going to fail, but that this effort, this movement is growing, and that our communities are coming together. And it's pretty beautiful to be a part of at the same time.
Yeah, I view Alberta as like the exemplar of what a province needs to do to become united and call out, essentially fascism is what we're dealing with right now.
100%. Yep. We are seeing what we have to cover in the last 2 months that you and I, or I guess it's 3 months that since we spoke, is remarkable. So let's back up there and let's talk about the ways that we're seeing fascism play out in our province here. So last we spoke, since then, you've been in some town halls. So can you back up and just talk through some of the things that you've seen and been up to in the last 2 or 3 months? Thank you.
So I was spending more time connecting with the separatists, whether it be out on their little rallies or at their signing petitions, and I was engaging in conversations with them, and those conversations weren't really getting me anywhere. It just felt like the same type of discourse that you're hearing in the comment section. It was a lot of we're saving Alberta from communism, and I was like, I need something deeper than this. So I went to a town hall. A fellow TikToker reached out to me and was like, "This town hall is happening," and so we both decided to go. And this town hall was on the north side of Edmonton. And when I first arrived there, everyone was extremely friendly to me. They were like, "Come on in, come sit down." So I went in, and that is when I had first heard Emmett Kelsey of the Centurion Project speak. I saw his table when I first went in there, and I'm like, "What is this?" This is a group I hadn't been aware of or had even heard of. The town hall was being hosted by Let's Talk Alberta, so I was aware of those players, but this Centurion project was new to me. And so I took some of their pamphlets. I still have them. I'm keeping them. And
That's
he
a
started,
collector's item, I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah. And as he started speaking, it sounded to me like the premise of his group was to get essentially like boots on the ground, start informing Albertans about the separatist movement, recruiting people in and giving them information sessions as to how they were going to spread awareness because they didn't have enough people involved in their movement. At that point, he hadn't really gone into the app. So I hadn't really heard much about the app, but he did mention that there was a meeting the next week and he was really welcoming with opposing questions. So I was like, okay, then that's where I'll be. While we were in this meeting, they did say that I could ask a question. So I was like, I had done my due diligence. I had looked into their webpage and I noticed that their webpage had linked over to the Whistle Stop page and they were promoting the Alberta Prosperity Project. And as they were speaking, they were consistently saying that they weren't promoting any politicians or any political party. And that's where I was like, this is incorrect. So I decided to go up and say, the Alberta Prosperity Project, as I had priorly gone to a Zoom meeting where Mitch Sylvester was speaking and promoting to buy UCP memberships. So I just said, you are in fact not nonpartisan and you are promoting political parties. And we had a little bit of a back and forth. It wasn't anything impolite. And he
And
was
he
like,
agreed with you. I
yep,
just want to note for people, he
yep,
said, yes, this is true. Keep going.
yep. And then the next day, I referenced back and they corrected their websites. They took the APP off the Whistle Stop and off their website, and that was gone within a day. So they did make that correction. And when I was there, I was very polite, but at one point, a lady did get in my face really close and she was, like yelling in my face. And I said, "Hey guys," like, but they just didn't pay any attention to that. And then after I left, because I left early after that had happened, and they like made a little post about me being aggressive and this, that, and I'm like, I'm not even responding. It's not true. So then the
No, I
next,
think
yeah,
standing your ground, speaking the truth to power, I think is, if that's considered aggressive, so be it. That's
that's
necessary.
what they always just say about a woman that isn't agreeing with them, right? It's just the same narrative. And with the groups, I'm noticing the age range is around like later 60s. It's not often that you see younger people involved in these meetings or at these town halls or at these petitions or on their little rally lines. It's never someone of my age or your age. It's usually quite older. So I find that interesting. Um, they what I also noticed is everything that they were saying was the information right off the Whistle Stop page. So it's like in my mind, I think that they go to these Zoom meetings, their Zoom town halls, and they all agree on exactly what they're going to say, how they're going to respond to a question. Because I even brought up the treaties, and how they responded to me with the treaties was verbatim off the Whistle Stop page. And essentially, they just said the chiefs don't speak for the indigenous peoples, the people speak for the people. And I was like, that
Yeah.
just closes off the
Wow.
whole conversation. That's all you're doing. You're just You're not acknowledging it.
Yeah, but rehearsed in a way which is very unnerving. Yeah. We have started over. For those of you that were watching live, thank you for joining us. Sorry for that. It's a frustrating experience. I can say that I've had some issues with audio in prior conversations that have been really important. And it's frustrating when that happens. And I'm sorry for everyone who tuned in. I'll get this out as quickly as I can for us, though, hopefully today. Okay, so let's back up a little bit, Mikayla. We were talking about you being at an event where you met Centurion for the first time. They were doing the what was it? The Let's Talk?
Let's Talk Alberta.com.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then you were saying that they were using a website called Whistle Stop.
Yes. So
And-
yes.
Okay. And Les Sylvester was there presenting, and you had questioned him and asked him outright. You guys said you're nonpartisan, you're not connected to any political parties, and yet it's on your website that you're encouraging people to get a UCP membership. What's up with that? And he answered honestly, you're right, it is. We shouldn't. That's true. And that's all we saw was you sit down and accept that response. And then, as you were saying, you had some people confront you there. It felt quite stressful. And then you also noted that the age group was around 60 years old. So
yes,
it's really important. And actually, I'm finding that kind of in every space, Mikayla, if you think about it, right? Because there's a lot of, even on the social movement side, I find there's a lot of retirees that are taking this on in their retirement too. So I feel like there's something about perhaps things that people have been through before in the past that allows them to be in a movement sooner. I'm not sure what this is. I'm trying to understand it myself, but I do think it's an important thing to note that these movements are generally older people first or something to that effect. But I'm glad to hear that there isn't a lot of young people in the separatist movement itself. That is good to know for sure for folks. Anything in that background that I missed in the summary? Anything you want to add?
No, that was just when I first heard of the Centurion project. And
Right.
then I was feeling very confused because they hadn't introduced the app. They were just talking in ways of how to spread information across the province. And Emmett Kelsey is very well spoken. He's very refined. He's friendly. He's willing to come and chat with you. And so he's a great person to have in leadership. He's extremely engaging, kind, and polite. So I was like, this is interesting. They're rebranding because at that meeting, they said that Mitch Sylvester is essentially out. He can't speak due to this injunction. So I was like, okay, this is a rebranding of the separatist movement. So they mentioned that they're having the Centurion project meeting the next week. So I was like, okay, I need to go. I need to go check this out. And it was in Edmonton. A local reporter met up with me there, and another TikToker was there. So from our side, there's 3 people. When I arrived, it was the busiest parking lot I had been to in a while. So I was definitely feeling nervous. And when I went in there, there was multiple different characters that have, the influencer type that have come after me online. So I was like, okay, I'm not in the safest space today. Benita Pedersen was there, and we've had some back and forth before, but she approached me. She said, we're really happy you're here. We want to bring in those opposing questions. If you'd like to sit in the front and ask a question, we'll keep you safe, because I was really worried about my safety this time, and that hasn't happened. And then Emmett came and he spoke to us and introduced himself again. And prior to this happening, I actually had a professor from Calgary reach out to me who had done a whole thesis on Take Back Alberta and David Parker. And she had, just kind of given me a little crash course on David Parker and who he was and how he was a big character in the resignation of Jason Kenney. And she told me that Take Back Alberta was extremely organized across the province during the convoy days, and that they had, kind of leaders throughout Alberta where they could connect. And she's like, so this group is going to be extremely well organized. They're going to take those pieces from Take Back Alberta, and they're going to be more organized than you've seen. And so when I was going into this meeting, I had all these thoughts in my head, and I was excited to hear David Parker speak because this is real. This is like a big deal. So I go and I sit in the back. I want to have an exit plan just in case. And they have a comedian. He was not funny. And then David Parker comes up.
Sorry,
And
what? They had
Yeah.
a comedian?
they had a comedian, and he was like, I often get called an incel. And I'm like, those are things that you do not put out there. I can't
Oh,
remember
wow.
the name of the comedian, but they were just like trying to lighten the mood, right? Because the mood definitely felt different there. There was media in the back. You could feel that it was a big deal, that this was like a launch, that this was the opening night. So they wanted people to feel engaged, that they had humor, that they were able to joke around about the comment sections around separatism and the conversations that people are having. So they just were like trying to put you at ease. They had influence there. Manny Ball was there, Alberta Radio, those type of characters were there. Marty up north. I don't know a lot of these people, but I heard their big names.
Oh, he was there?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
You talk about Alberta dad, proud dad, harassing you. That man harassed me off of Twitter, essentially. Yeah.
Oh,
he's
okay.
not-
See,
Yeah.
and this is the problem with this separatist movement. How would we ever trust them when their main tactic is to aggressively bully you into silence and intimidate? And we have talked about this, you and I, and we both have decided that we're not going to be intimidated. And no matter how far we have to step into this, you can't scare me. You can't scare you. It's just not happening. It's not going to happen. And I think because they're men, they think that they can really intimidate women. And it's just, we're not backing down. We're not going anywhere. This is what we're focused on, right?
It's too important. Like we started with, this is about our kids.
It is.
Women.
It's about our kids. It's about our future. It's about the land. It's about our treaty partnership. And even going back to Berta Proud Dad, he said an apology the other day, and he said, I'm rooted in integrity. And I said, you're absolutely not. Nothing you have done is integrity. I said, most people that are opposing you are principled and rooted in integrity. And if you really, because he apologized to me and he made an apology, if you really want to apologize, you be quiet, you sit down and you listen. That's the first step to an apology.
Yeah. Did I tell you that he came to one of my signing locations? Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think I said this publicly last time we spoke, did I? Or was it in our conversation?
Mm.
Yeah. So I think it's important to say he came to a signing station like the first week when it was really active. And he confronted me about the misinformation I was talking about in schools. And I said, great. Yeah, I want to talk about this. And so I said, I think it's 39 oil and gas companies that are pumping propaganda into our classrooms. And he said, well, what propaganda? And I said, well, the fact that fossil fuels is somehow a transition for the fossil fuels, like moving to natural gas or LNG is not a climate solution. That's replacing one hazard with another. And he said, well, but what exactly are they saying? And I said, well, they're saying that, we can do carbon capture and storage and that's not real and that we can use LNG. And then finally I said, look, the separatist movement is about the oil and gas industry reneging on cleaning up the environmental hazards that they've created here. And he turned and ran.
Mm-hmm.
He literally turned on his heels and ran rapidly walked away from me to his vehicle. And I looked at the person that was with me and he said he didn't like what you said. And I just thought, wow, he was visibly, I think, upset about what I explained to him in that moment. And I think he should, to your point. I was telling him because this is not a joke. This is not something that is helpful for Albertans, for Canadians, for Americans, none of us. And so, and not to say, let me be clear what I mean by that. Being independent is not something that is realistic when you are a landlocked province. And it's not helpful when we actually have to address major issues like water contamination and our ecology collapsing because they want to extract every drop of oil until we are a complete wasteland. This is big stuff, and he should not be speaking to it. Like you said, he should be taking a seat and he should be learning and listening with us, because ultimately we're on the same side as him. This is
Yes.
his problems are our problems and vice versa. And
Yeah.
you and I have been trying, I had an acquaintance from my upbringing trying to tell me all about how great the separatist movement is, and he refuses to speak to us. You and I both offered to have conversations with them.
And
So this is
I
so you're
love to
doing the
have
work.
conversation, right? I think they're afraid that we're like trying to bully them into a corner, but really what we need to do is come into the middle and just have this conversation. If we don't have an environment, we have nothing left to give our children. And we haven't even talked about data centers with the separatists. We haven't even
No,
there's
right.
no, and that's why this movement is also so frustrating to me, because the UCP will say, oh, we want to be a sovereign Alberta within Canada, whatever that means, but is disrupting the conversation and taking away from all the issues that we need to be focusing on. And so we spend all our time fighting separatists when we're going to lose so much water and land to these data centers. And those conversations are completely closed off right now. We aren't even able to get to them.
No, for sure. And I listened to, I'll post it with this, an amazing discussion yesterday about how much oil and gas has come off of line because of this unconstitutional and illegal war that is happening in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
14 million barrels a day that is gone. It's the same level as we were at in 2011. We have set our economy back. I think he suggested more than, or 36%, something like this. Like, that's how significant a drop this is. And it's headed to catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, there are much bigger issues that we actually need to be addressing and discussing. And, even in this conversation that I listened to, he's talking about Alberta and Venezuela making up for these lost volumes. And that is not possible with what will happen to our ecology. So there's so much of this that is not being discussed. Instead, we're having these insane conversations about leaving this country as if that's going to solve anything. And what I just said, that solves absolutely nothing from what we're talking about. So let's go back to the focus. Thank you, though, for letting me go on that
No,
tangent.
this is the conversation that we should be having, right?
Right.
All of us. But right now, we have to move forward from the separatist movement. And so, yes, so then David Parker comes up, and I'm waiting because I'm like, okay, I've got what this professor told me in my mind. I know they're well organized. I haven't really paid attention to this man, but I've heard of him. He gets on the stage and he's just captivating. He instantly captivates the room. He's an engaging speaker. He knows his facts. He knows exactly what he needs to say, how he needs to say it. And so he starts speaking about how there's not enough separatists in the separatist movement to even make this possible. And it's the biggest issue. And we need leaders. And with leaders, what the most powerful part of a leader is having followers. It's not even about what you're saying. It's about the group of people that are following you. And so I was like, interesting. So he said, and in this room, we have leaders. So what we need to do is, and this is where we start talking about the Centurion project. We need you to take the training so that you can spread the information to fellow Albertans. And he was talking about like this point system. So if you get like a regular conservative, I view that as 1 point. But if you can flip an NDP voter, that's 2 points. And I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like thinking, how would they know if someone's an NDP voter? And so, alarm bells are starting to go off a little bit. And so then they're talking about the app. So you go into the app. Once you've completed the training, you get the logins. When you get the logins, you can just type in someone's name. When you do that, it gives you their address, their phone number. So then you call them. Once you call them and you give them this information and they decide to join you, that person is labeled as claimed. I don't know how they would see that on the website. So then once they're claimed, they can start gathering other people under their name and so on and so forth. And it was just building this like pyramid organization of people. There didn't seem to be money involved in it. It was just the information was invaluable. collecting those people was invaluable. And that just goes to show you how important our data is and our votes.
And sorry, I just have to interject here. When we talk about this with the separatist movement, so now these are the people that would have control of our information on these said data centers that you mentioned briefly. We haven't even talked about, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's important. So he continues to speak about just how powerful this movement can be, that moving forward, this is the only way to organize. This is the only way it's going to work. And, you know, before he went on this tangent, he was like, we have to applaud Mitch Sylvester. We have to give him a round of applause, thank him for that referendum question. And essentially, it was like benching him. Like, you could feel that Mitch is being benched, he's being put to the side, and this is the new way forward. And this was a refined edition of the separatist movement, and it felt really clean and polished, and they all had this targeted plan and goal, and they all knew exactly what they were going to say. So after he spoke, I was like, wow, I don't know where this information is coming from. I don't know how they're getting the names. And I'm just thinking, okay, so they're starting to collect the donations, and I can't sit through that. I sat through it at the last meeting, and I'm like, I am not sitting through this donation thing again. So I go outside, and I'm just standing there. I'm talking to my friends that I went with, and I look, and a whole bunch, I'd say like 4 cop cars come, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's a scuffle going on inside, right? But no, the police come, the Elections Alberta investigator comes, and that's when I started filming. And Emmett Kelsey comes out, and Tim Hoven. And then Benita comes out, they send her back in, essentially like, keep the night running, okay? As that's going on, and the election investigators explaining, you know, you were given this cease and desist yesterday regarding the electoral list and the information in your app, and we have reason to believe that you're using this elections list for your app. So they had already been served that cease and desist. They were well aware, and they decided to move on with their evening. So the Elections Alberta officials just said, we're not saying that you're showing that information tonight, but you are not to use that information. And I'm thinking in my head, shut it down. Shut this down. We already know they're not to be trusted. They have all our information. And the Elections Alberta official was definitely nervous. Now I understand why. So after that conversation happened, I went and I spoke to the police, and I said, I filmed this. Am I allowed to use it? And then he pointed to his little Axon camera, and I'm like, oh, that's your Axon. Nice. He's like, I filmed it too. Then I went to speak with the Elections Alberta official, and I asked if I could use the footage, and he said, yeah. I just wanted to make sure, because I don't know what his safety looks like either. That's scary. You're walking into a pit of hyenas and essentially calling this movement out. So after that, I left, and I was with Jeremy. I always say his last name wrong. Appeal. And he was like, I want to write an article on this. And then when you do, I'll release the article in the morning, and you can release your footage. So I said, okay. Since then, obviously, everything has blown up. And the province has been publicly doxxed. I just put a little clip on my Instagram of Emmett Kelsey talking to Tim Hoven and someone else about, prior to this, about a month ago, this app was changing how elections were going to work. And he had gone down with this app to the White House. I don't know if it was necessarily Emmett Kelsey, but it was the Centurion group. And they were showing it to White House officials. So then this leads you to so many questions. Did they bring our list? Did they give our information? Who were they meeting up with? Who funded this? How did they go down there with our list? And at this point, we know that Elections Alberta had the information for a month. Did Elections Alberta know that they went to the White House with this list?
Right. Yeah. So I want to frame a little bit for people, because I think it's really important to understand, like you said, the bigger issue at play. So my experience with Elections Alberta. So when you look at how many recalls there were, There's at least 26. So that's a whole thing. They were not given extra funding, no extra staff for that. They changed the rules a year ago, which sort of kneecapped Elections Alberta to be able to address concerns about fraud or misuse of data. And then there's also, when you look at the petition number for Water Not Coal, it says C11, which to me suggests there's been 9 other petitions that have been put forward that we might not know about as well. So, and I'll be very specific, there were some concerns around badges being returned for my recall campaign.
Yeah.
And I responded right away and said, this doesn't make any sense. I've got, these people all submitted their signature counts and went through a notary public and all that. And I heard a response 1 month later. So I just want to frame for people that Elections Alberta, I think, is underwater. And they're being bombarded. And I'll be specific. I filed a complaint during my recall. I asked for an investigation into something. And it took them 2 weeks to get back to me and say, no, we're not investigating that. That's not really real, worth looking at. So I guess I'm just trying to help people understand.
They're overwhelmed and underfunded. And this is intentional by the UCP yet again, right? We know that. We know that the UCP has their hand in this. And it makes you think the UCP knew our information, most likely, allegedly. This is me just speculating that they knew that our information had been doxed. And they didn't do it.
As the government, so it's possible that they, I'm not sure how the information is shared. But I do want to add one other thing, because I'm pretty sure either Jeremy reported on it or it was in your video. But is it not true that Parker mentioned that this technology was used to help get Trump elected in swing states? Is that not something that was said publicly?
Yes. And he also mentioned that he went on a speaking tour with Tucker Carlson. So we've been looking for this link between the separatist movement and American influence. And I think we have found it. It's safe to say.
It's undeniable. It's been stated publicly by the people, even if it's a handoff, like you're saying, if this is a handoff between the Alberta Prosperity Project and the Centurion project, it's very clear that there is a handoff and that information or potential discussion or sharing. It's all very concerning. And let's remind people that there was a $500 billion offer from the United States to help fund this separatist movement.
Yeah.
And Secretary Brissett said publicly, oh yeah, Alberta would be great addition to the United States. So he was bragging about the separatist movement and what might come out of that. So there's been a lot of evidence of this being tied to the United States, but now it is a smoking gun. Yeah. So my thoughts right now, and again, we're speculating here, but my questions, let's say, are number one, so let's talk about the law. So the law that we understand to be broken is Elections Alberta. If that information is shared beyond a political party, beyond a nomination, but then that would be restricted to a certain area. This is Alberta-wide, so this is definitely at that level of a party. We know that it's tied to the Alberta Republican Party. Let's be clear, that's what Elections Alberta stated. And so then they are subject to fines for sharing the information. I'm assuming also using the information is subject to fines. And then I'm assuming both parties might be subject to jail time. It's possible they could see up to a year in jail time. That's how significant and severe this is. Highly encourage people to read the Elections Alberta statement. I do kind of agree with Jen, the woman who had initially told Elections Alberta that this was an issue back in March 31st. Mm-hmm. They should have listed it in the timeline that it was flagged to them and they didn't see it as being a risk. I think that's something I think that's true. But that being said, I'm thinking of myself and some of the things that were investigated on my campaign. Would I have liked to have been told that publicly if nothing came of it? Do you know what I mean? So anyway, they did respond to Jen's, public notice of her exchange with them in saying that their hands were tied and they couldn't do that. So I hope that helps clear the air there.
Yeah.
Let me add one other thing that you actually, I don't want to forget to do this. So I'm going to quickly show a tweet that David Parker put out just a day after they were outed. Tell me when you can see it, Mikayla.
Yeah. I can see.
Yeah, so it says, so many people panicking and saying this movement has been killed or damaged by this. You guys really don't have what it takes to build a country. Bunch of untrained soldiers. When I think about the way you describe that meeting, it sounds like he's promoting soldiers, your leaders. We need you to find followers. Yeah, untrained soldiers freaking out at the first shots from the enemy. Chill out. This is what lawfare looks like. Wow. I just think that statement is remarkable and needs to be noted because, yeah, it's just, to me, I don't, sorry, I'm just trying to close this off for myself now. I just find it very appalling that he's just so blatant about what's at stake, and that this is essentially being at war with the law, let's say, is what those words say to me. Yeah, let's back up a little bit though, because there's one other thing that you uncovered in the last couple months, which is there was this connection with the United Conservative Party as well. So you sat in on an emergency meeting. Do you remember, can you give a little bit of what happened in that meeting?
So someone had sent me the Zoom link for an emergency meeting, which happened a few days after the injunction with the petition. So they sent me the link and I'm like, I need to go into this and I need to listen. So I signed up and I could see everybody that was sitting in on that meeting. I could see their faces and their names. Obviously, I'm going to keep that to myself, but it was pretty full of people. And Mitch just, his repetitive phrase was, we need to make this too big to rig. He really liked that phrase and he kept saying that. And so he essentially just went in and he's like, we need to continue to collect those signatures. We need to continue to grow this movement so that it's too big to rig. And if Danielle Smith essentially doesn't work with us and this petition, then we're just going to continue with our plan of buying our UCP memberships, joining the UCP, getting our own people within that party. So in my mind, you're going to get people to become politicians for the UCP if they aren't doing what you like and how you're trying to influence them. So right there, it just showed me how much influence this separatist movement has had within the UCP. And at one point, a lady asked a question and she said, sorry, what is the UCP? And I'm like, are we being for real right now? And so,
yeah, so much at stake, and just like, wait, what?
yeah.
What are we talking about? Okay,
Yeah,
no
it's so you want to separate from a country, but you can't even be responsible enough to know what the UCP is, and that's extremely problematic. At one point, a lady was essentially saying, if Palestine can be its own sovereign state, then why can't we? Why can't Alberta? And I'm just sitting there, just the arrogance of these conversations that are happening. And Mitch is like, yeah, well, I agree. And I'm just like, this is scary. This is scary. I don't think people understand how scary this is, because when you have that type of arrogance and a cause and a movement, you're going to start seeing tweets like David Parker, and that's going to become the regular language that people are exposed to, and they're going to start believing and speaking like, and we have seen that time and time again throughout this movement. And that's why we have to continue to be vocal against the separatists, against the UCP and this movement, because they're going to continue to push it. It is in their best interest to have this movement front and center, as we spoke about, because it takes our focus from key issues. And this movement has money behind it. If they can continue to get foreign influence from America and make their alliance, they're just using the people in the separatist movement, the UCP at this point. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I constantly tell the separatists, you've been got. Because I don't want to sit around in my life and oppose people. I want people to have choice and vote how they want and feel how they want. But right now it's too dangerous.
Yeah, I understand. And like you said, it's from a place of, I would say two things, like blind trust in a lot of cases. You know, that conservative name, like I was thinking just on the backs of this, I think the fact that they took away the word conservative from other parties being able to use it, because there was polling that showed that if Guthrie's party had kept the name progressive conservative, that they would have won like by a landslide. So this is how trusting people are of that brand, let's say. And then secondly, yeah, it's preying on people's fears and it's preying on people's ignorance. And I can say that from a place of I've been ignorant here. You know, we've had nothing. When you hear somebody say, like you just said, if Palestine can have their own state, they went from being a concentration camp to being in a genocide. That is not freedom like we have here, people. This is two different things. But also I want to go back to, you know, you bring up the data centers and it's just such an important thing because this is something that unites us all. None of us want to be surveilled. None of us want to be, you know, you and I tried to have a conversation and now we're having it offline rather than live and being able to engage with people. This is, those are the ways that we're being restricted when we're trying to do meaningful things, not in the ways where we're just, you know, looking out for our own individual, what word I'm looking for, like our self-interests, our own self-interests.
Well, and we can even tie this data breach in because we were going to talk about the police, and we can tie this in with surveillance. We can tie this in with the police, and we can tie this in with data centers. They're all connected, and even Palestine. They're all connected. And that's what I say to people. Every single thing that we're doing crosses at an intersection, and that's why it's important to be paying attention. So when we look at our police officer, our chief of police, Warren Driechel, and he's going to occupied Palestine to connect with community and then come back here. And then we look at that and we realize not only is he going to a country that is committing a genocide, he's using technology that was utilized within that Palestinian laboratory, and he's bringing that back here. And then we learned that we're the first city, Edmonton is the first city that has got this facial recognition in these cameras. And there's been so many critics that are raising the alarms regarding them because with this facial recognition technology, it is biased to darker skin colors. And so right there, you're putting people in danger. And so not only are they testing that, the RCMP is testing the AI reporting system. And with the AI reporting system, they're building a huge data center in Ontario. And I suspect it's connected to this Axon data cloud that they'll need. And with the AI reporting, it's extremely inaccurate because it will go to a scene and it's just viewing from the camera. So it's not looking left, it's not looking right. It's only recording the conversation. And then that evidence is put into a report. And then the only way to check out this report after is it intentionally puts errors in the report that the officer has to go and check. And they've had instances with the AI reporting of AI hallucination. So an officer was interviewing someone, it was some type of investigation. In the background, a movie was playing, and the AI reported that the police officer had turned into a frog. And so they're saying that these AI cameras, they can't have discernment like a human can. And so, yeah, we're being surveilled. That has our data. That data from those cameras from our police are going to a third party. They're not staying within our policing system. So to me, that could be another breach of our security and safety. And so when we're talking about security, it's on all fronts right now.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that into this. So to attach to this episode, we will have the petition to remove the Edmonton police chief. Thank you very much for helping people see this need. Let's also bring in, because I feel I must, as somebody who lives in Calgary, Harper is a big part of the IDU, as is Pierre Poilievre. You know, this is not secretive. This is open knowledge that Harper has helped shape the tools that were used to identify or to find and identify Palestinians and murder them in this war. So this tool is not, these connections, like you say, they're not something conspiratorial when it's known by the people who say this. You can look this up, that Harper is the leader of the IDU and that Poilievre has ties to this as well. Plus the 2025 project ties to Poilievre. And, I couldn't help but think of where we were supposed to be in terms of our federal election, right? Like Poilievre was supposed to win. Federal election, and we were supposed to be working towards a 51st state collectively. So this is really not something to be taken lightly. Like you said, we have a responsibility as people that are this privileged to pay attention and to stay involved. I am just so grateful for everything you're doing, Mikayla. Let's just quickly, before we wrap, what's next for you? What are you looking to next? I mean, don't give away the farm, but like understand where they should be looking next.
I want to just add on to Stephen Harper and Pierre Poilievre really quickly. Within Alberta, we have a very powerful conservative think tank entity that influences a lot of our policies, which is called the Canada Strong and Free Network. And there's a lot of big players and there's a lot of conferences and they meet. And this is where a lot of these ideas are coming. And a lot of the sponsors you need to look to for this Canada Strong and Free Network. So I pay attention to that a lot. What comes next is we really have to follow through with this separatist movement and this data breach, and we can't let it go to the background. Obviously, I'm going to continue working on this police petition. It's important. And I don't know, sometimes I just wait for things to fall in my lap, but the separatist movement is definitely at the forefront of my mind, and I'm not walking away from it until, we're going to be seeing it in court. So it's going to be years.
Right. Yeah. So you're going to be following it through. That's fantastic. Yeah. This Canadian Strong and Free Network, you're reminding me that there was just a notice that Danielle Smith is speaking at an event for it. And Mike Pompeo. So remember, Mike Pompeo was the one who announced that it was Mossad agents which caused the riots in Iran, that was not a self-provoked event. It was a highly orchestrated event. He put out tweets himself that he poked, I think it was Hegseth and the president himself, saying, hey, this is what we're doing, right, guys? Know, so all very in the open, just for people to take a look and see. And very important to be paying attention to what's going on in these movements. Thank you for bringing that name into it. Okay, and that's too big to rig. That's very interesting because, like you said, and what was also said in that meeting that I think is really important for people to pay attention to, is that this wasn't going to happen with just door knocking. This was going to have to happen in a different way. So let's remind ourselves that most of us are responsible people that care about each other. Mikayla and I are just helping people like that understand what's going on and making sure that we are holding ourselves responsible for what we're seeing and being honest about the importance of standing up and fighting against this. Thank you, Mikayla Resist. You are my hero. I genuinely mean it. It makes me really proud to be associated with you and to see all the work you're doing and being just the eyes and ears for us. You unfiltered, very, very inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you. All right. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.